No, it hasn't.
Good morning, everyone. And today is Wednesday, April the 3rd. Welcome to our state government committee. We will begin with a roll call from our Mr. Clerk down there.
Representatives Alexander, Bricken, Butler, Carringer, Chisholm, Dixie, Haston, Holsclaw, Hurt, Jernigan, Johnson, Leatherwood, Littleton, McCalman, Miller, Pearson, Powell, Powers, Rudder, Terry, Vice Chair Eldridge, Chairman Kiesling.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All right. This day in history begins in the year 1860. That was when the Pony Express was started. It delivered American Express mail by horse and rider by way of relay teams. In 1933, the first airplane flight over Mount Everest took place. And in 1960, downtown Nashville at RCA Studios, Elvis was in town. He recorded during that period, that day or two or three, It's Now or Never, Fever, and Are You Lonesome Tonight? 1973 on today, the first handheld portable telephone was demonstrated for reporters on a New York City street corner. And Doris Day, when it comes to famous birthdays, it was Doris Day, the American actress and singer, born in 1922. And the number one song in 1968 today was Otis Redding's That's right, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Correct. All right. Are there any, since we've already announced our welcome, let's turn to you, members. Do you have any personal orders or announcements? Any of you? Yes, we do. Representative Butler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, we had a tornado touch down in Sunbright, Tennessee yesterday afternoon. There were no fatalities, thank the good Lord. And there's lots of extensive damage, and they were able to get the power turned back on to all of those residents about 5 a.m. this morning Eastern time. And unfortunately, after that tornado, there was a Captain Heatherly with the troopers that was in a head-on collision heading to that incident that was hit on Highway 62, which I have mentioned multiple times being such a dangerous highway. She was hit head-on. She was taken to, I believe, Knoxville, and suffered a fractured sternum and a fracture in her hand, but is doing well this morning and will be sore for a few days. But two bad incidences, but both of them with a good outcome.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Butler. Yes. No, we do not. Well, I'm sorry, Chairman.
No, I was going to say she's from Jacksboro.
Oh, yes. Okay, very good. All right. Hey, coming up Saturday, we are going to be celebrating with one of our committee members, Mr. Representative Jake McCallum. Jake, happy birthday coming up. Yes, thank you. Yes, the one said he'll be 21. All right, let's turn to our calendar. Let's get started. And we're going to go to item number 1. It's an HJR 674, and we are looking for Representative Hardaway, and he's not here. So let us move right on down the calendar to item number 2, and that will be House Bill 694 by Representative Fritz. He is present, and we've already got a motion and a second. And that one, let's see, that's off notice, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
that 694 is off notice. Yes, thank you, Representative Fritz, but don't you move, sir. We want to, let me give the gavel. That is off notice. Now, to make it official, let's go to item number 3, House Bill 2304. We have already got a motion and a second. Representative Fritz, I've got an amendment I'm showing. I'll let you give me the drafting code, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Amendment 15845. I would like to add,
Perfect.
please.
You're right on. Got a motion? Yes, and a second on this one. Let's get it on the bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. It is now on the bill. It's good to have you with us today. Representative Fritz, go, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'll be as brief as possible with this and in respect of y'all's time. The amendment that we just added was simply a change to remove the word local and add the wording except for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. I'll explain that in just a moment. This bill is something that we've worked closely with the Department of Safety and the TBI to develop. This legislation, as amended, requires all law enforcement agencies in our state, with the exception of the TBI, to document their interactions with illegal aliens and submit that documentation to the Department of Safety on a monthly basis. It requires the Department of Safety to do the following: to develop standardized reporting format for these law enforcement agencies, to use in reporting these interactions, as well as confiscate any fake or false IDs that may have been issued to these folks. And to use these monthly reports to compile an annual report on illegal alien presence and activity in the state, and to share this data with the TBI. Fake or false or illegal identification is an issue in our nation today, and we must address both the possessors of and the distributors of this false ID, and this bill attempts to get us started on doing this. Why is this needed? Certainly, as I've already mentioned, we do have a failed southern border policy, and it has resulted in lots of folks who have illegally come into our country. We have had examples of folks who have been caught with fake IDs. That's certainly one of our responsibilities to manage that, I think. I will offer that we probably don't get all the help that we need from the federal government in understanding the significance of this issue in our state. So this bill is a first step at attempting to address that. And again, we work closely with Commissioner Long and his group and TBI to make sure that this is a very measured, common sense approach to give that authority to our agencies in this state. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Representative Fritz. Any questions? Which we do. Yes, Representative Chisholm, or I'm sorry, Dixie, please, I apologize.
It's okay. We look alike.
No, sir. Go right ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Does this bill address like this, that citizen that's here legally that has a fake ID and they're arrested doing criminal activity? Does this
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. This bill addresses illegal aliens specifically.
No, but legal alien. So if I had a fake ID and I was committing a crime, found a possession, does any of this apply to me?
Thank you,
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thanks for the question. No, sir, it does not. It specifically covers only illegal aliens.
All right.
Representative Dixie, follow up.
No.
I'm sorry.
I said, no, I'm choking right now, but thank you.
Okay, you're very kind. Yes, sir. All right, got a question called on the bill. I see no objection. Let us vote. Let us vote. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. And you, sir, are moving on to calendar and rules. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Chairman Committee.
All right, moving on to number 4, item number 4, Representative, or Chair, excuse me, Chairman Reagan coming in at House Bill. All right, got a House Bill 2619. And Chairman, we've got a motion and a second already on your bill, but it has an amendment. It's carrying, right? But is
Yes, sir. Amendment
all right,
code
so we've already got a
15954.
motion and a second on the amendment. So let's get it on. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, nope. The ayes have it, and it is now on the bill. Chairman Reagan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is amended prohibits funding inmate sex reassignment procedures by the Tennessee Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections began spending state funds on hormone therapy without prior specific legislative approval. Consequently, this bill does not affect, in other words, it grandfathers those inmates are already on hormone therapy. However, neither future surgical nor hormone procedures will be publicly funded. Individuals in penitentiaries are there because of noted poor decision-making. Publicly financing permanently life-altering, voluntary Surgical or hormone procedures is not wise as a result. Tennessee has invested significant resources and energy into improving rehabilitation and reducing recidivism. It becomes more difficult, not easier, for inmates to restart a normal life after such a procedure. Fiscal responsibility within the public treasury is clear. It is not the taxpayer's responsibility to pay for voluntary inmate sex reassignment procedures. And the question arises, who pays for the required continued hormone therapy after an inmate is released back into the community? Deference is owed to the taxpayers with religious objections, i.e. forcing taxpayers to pay for sex reassignment procedures against sincerely held religious beliefs is immoral and constitutionally questionable at best. With that explanation, sir, I stand ready to answer questions.
Thank you, Chairman Ray, again. And yes, we do have getting a lineup here of questions. Representative Pearson, welcome. You're
you so-
recognized, sir.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I appreciate you. And look, I'm deeply concerned about this legislation. We have the code that you are seeking to change says the Department of Correction shall provide adequate medical care, including 24-hour emergency care at all prison facilities. The department may not. The department may contract with the county health department or other appropriate entities to secure trained medical personnel. We have a responsibility of providing health care to the people who are incarcerated. And while some of them, as you mentioned, will be there because of poor decision making, we know that our criminal justice system is imperfect. And there are people in our prisons who actually would be exonerated and have been exonerated beforehand. And so we can't say that we have a perfect system. But what I am concerned mostly about is the dehumanization aspect. And want for you to elaborate on the discrimination that you are that you've articulated even in your explanation, that there are going to be people who are in our county jails, workhouses, state penitentiaries who are going to continue to receive hormone replacement therapy. And I'm in section 1, lowercase 1. And now we're going to say for folks who are currently entering, if this was to become law, we're going to discriminate against them and not give them the same therapy that other people who are incarcerated today currently have.
Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is nothing more than a recognition of the fact that lawsuits could arise out of that, and the idea that that hormone therapy reduction would create potential medical problems beyond that which was anticipated. Therefore, it would be financially or fiscally irresponsible for us to terminate that without having the ability to provide any other replacement. There is no replacement for it at this time medically.
Representative Pearson, follow up.
So thank you. For individuals who need this care, you are saying that we are going to instruct our Department of Corrections to not provide it to them with this legislation.
Chairman Reagan.
Point of clarity, when you say individuals who need this care, can you specify what you're talking about, sir?
An individual who would
Pearson.
need hormone replacement therapy or any of the other things that you should prescribe in here in this legislation, you are saying this law would prevent anyone in the Department of Corrections from being able to provide that care. Correct?
Chairman Reagan, do you want us to, would you like for us to defer to legal at this moment? It's up
Yes.
to you.
Yes, sir, please.
All right, sure. No objection. We will go out of session. We will turn our attention and defer to Council Mr. Matt Mundy. Master Mundy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Matt Mundy from Legal. I'm looking in section 1, subsection B, subdivision 2. Notwithstanding this title, to the contrary, the Department of Corrections shall not use funds to administer hormone replacement therapy to state inmates incarcerated in a state penitentiary. So I don't think there's any particular cohort. I think that it would apply to hormone replacement therapy for any state inmate.
Any further
Not-
questions? Yes, I'm
Right.
sorry. Go, Representative Pearson.
Currently, or for people who would become state inmates after the passage of this legislation.
People who are incarcerated after the passage of this legislation, those that are currently on hormone replacement therapy that are incarcerated at the time of the effective date, which I believe is July 1.
Mhm.
No, it takes effect upon becoming a law. I apologize. But those that are incarcerated at that time will continue to receive that therapy.
Thank you.
All right, further questions to legal? Yes, we do. Representative Miller to legal. You're
Yeah,
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anything within the language that says that an inmate, let's say upon passage of this bill, any new inmate would have, let's say, an opportunity to go out and solicit funding by a third party?
Mr. Mundy.
Thank you, Matt Money, for the record. There's nothing that says that that's prohibited or authorized in the bill. So presumably, if there was a third party that wanted to provide a mechanism for them to get that therapy, it could be funded in an alternative manner other than through state funds.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further, final question.
Final question for legal.
Pearson, yes.
Do we have a responsibility to provide health care to state inmates?
Mr. Mundy.
Thank you, Matt Money, for the record. The Eighth Amendment, the prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment requires us to provide inmates with adequate medical care. That's a subjective test. If you look at case law, and I spent about 3 hours researching this yesterday. So I think the question is going to be whether or not, if this passes and there's a lawsuit, it would be whether alternative therapies and modalities for the treatment of whatever the infirmity is suffice to be adequate medical care. And I would just, for the record, state that what adequate medical care is not the highest and best care. It's not what the patient wants. It actually has to be the deprivation of care that rises to the level of criminal negligence. So it's a very high standard to prove that it's not adequate medical care.
Okay, he's all right. Any further questions to legal? No, I see none. All right, no objection. We're back in session. So with that, Mr. Reverend, well, first of all, back to Chairman Reagan. Any follow-up from legal's comments?
No, sir. Just a reminder to the members that once this therapy has begun, it usually must be continued. Otherwise, the recipient suffers debilitating after effects. Therefore, fiscal responsibility of the taxpayer is important here. That is to say, if this is begun while the inmate is in prison and will be released, the question arises, who's going to continue to pay for that therapy? And if they're out of prison, the question becomes then, is that going to be a lawsuit? Again, to the detriment of the taxpayer and the state. Therefore, in accordance with legal's interpretation, which I happen to agree with, the highest and best care standard, which could be argued, is not in discussion here. We're talking about a different standard of care, and therefore the state is not obligated to provide this, nor should we because of fiscal constraints.
Okay, very good. Let's wrap. Okay, well, wait just a second, Representative Miller. Representative Pearson.
That's my last point, and then
Okay,
Chairman
thank you.
Miller. Look, I understand what you're saying about fiscal responsibility, but we have a moral responsibility and obligation to care for the people who are in the Department of Corrections, which should be a place where people are being helped to be transformed into the citizens that they could be able to engage in society. By denying people adequate care, this promotes policies that I do believe are anti the trans community, anti the LGBTQIA community, and are wrong. And you mentioned at one point that this is about fiscal responsibility. Then you talk about a moral responsibility that taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for things that are against their religious objections. My religious objection to legislation like this is its discriminatory practices that hurt the lost, and the least of these. I think it's wrong. I think it's immoral, and I don't think we need to legislate things in this way. Thank you, Chairman.
You bet. All right, Chair Lady Littleton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll call for previous question.
All right, call for the previous question. I see no objection. Are there objection? Nope.
It only takes one.
Only takes one. All right. No. Okay. All right. Representative Dixie, you do object. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. Well. No. All right, we're going to vote. There is objection, so we are a yes vote. We will a yes vote will put us will be in favor of the call for the question. A no vote, of course, is obviously a no. So we will. Here we go. Those in favor of the call for the question, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. So we are back on the call for the question. So we have got, see no objection further. So let us vote. Those in favor of House Bill 2619 as amended, please say aye. Those opposed, nope. The ayes have it. And Chairman, you, sir, are moving on to calendar and rules, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Moving on to item number 5, House Bill 2345 is taken off notice. And that positions us to number 6. At this moment, we are going to go out of session. If no objection, your chairman is going to remove himself from the committee room and go to another committee. With that, we will pass the gavel over to our dear chairman, Chairman Eldridge.
My mic on. We are back in session and we are on item number 6, which is House Bill 2774 by Representative McCalman. Representative? Got a motion and got a second, and I believe you do have an amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. It is drafting code 015421.
All right, sir. Okay, we have a motion, a second on the amendment. Without objection, we'll go ahead and vote to get this on with the bill. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. So, sir, you're back on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, what this bill does, House Bill 2774, it is going to assess the cost of incarceration on illegal immigration within this state in our penitentiaries, as well as charges and convictions within our local DA's offices. It will be reported to the General Assembly and to the Attorney General's office to determine whether or not we have the ability to file suit withstanding. And with that, I stand ready for questions.
All right, we've heard the explanation. We do have Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. And sponsor, as I understand it, the district attorneys will be creating this report. Is that correct? At the conference.
Yeah, Representative Callen.
Thank you,
Go
Chairman.
ahead.
Representative, it would be the DA's offices at their conference creating this report, tracking it throughout the year and being able to report back to us as well as the Attorney General's office.
And there's an end date of this for 2032. Why is the end date there for this legislation being repealed?
Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. It's something that we're looking to put into place. We can review it in 2032 if we need to. If we need to continue going, we can further it along to an extended period. This is simply to see if this is something that we need to be essentially recouping from the federal government from this.
So we have a lot of issues. Thank you for answering the question, sponsor. Thank you, Chairman. We have a lot of issues that I believe our district attorneys conference and a lot of people in law enforcement need to prioritize. I've seen a lot of bills talking about immigration and none of it to address the root causes of the problems that are occurring or how we support people in our communities who are migrants or immigrants. I don't think this legislation requiring this report is going to help to advance any of the causes that you nor I care about. And so for those reasons, I cannot support this legislation. And I do hope that if we want to help our communities who are migrants and who are immigrants, that we do make the appropriate investments and not just continue to seek to track them or to use xenophobia to legislate against them. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next on our list, we have Representative Dixie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for the sponsor is, in the amendment, it provides a list of statuses that are legal for the DA to check. But there's some statuses that were left out. For example, the H-2A, a visa for a temporary agricultural worker, H-2B, a visas for temporary non-agricultural workers, a K-1 visa for fiancés of U.S. citizens, and a U visa for victims of qualifying criminal activity. My question is, how would those people prove their legal statuses since this bill does not include them?
Representative McCallum, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. This is simply looking at folks who are either already incarcerated, so they have committed a crime, and we cannot prove that they have a legal standing within our country at this point, sir. They've been convicted of a crime or they are serving time for a crime committed.
Any follow-up?
Yes, quick. I guess my question is that I'm sure that there are people that have these visas, but they're not listed under the requirements for the DAs to check, they may get arrested as well too. I understand that there are some people in there with illegal immigrants, but this doesn't address those particular visas. Can you address that part, or does this bill address that at all?
All right, Representative McCallum.
I think that's apples and oranges. I mean, for lack of a better phrase. Again, this is strictly speaking to folks who are not here in this country legally that are serving time in our prisons and jails.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next up, we have Representative Bricken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the sponsor, certainly I fully support your bill. I'm just a little bit puzzled. It seems like the Department of Correction and our local sheriffs would be in the position to gather this information versus the district attorneys. And the second part of the question is, I've never heard of the district attorney conference, and so I'm not sure what that is. What that is. So if you could help me out there, I appreciate it.
Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. From my understanding, the district attorneys have an annual conference here in the state. That's what was explained to me. So that they would be, originally with the amendment, they were checking this throughout the year. They were going to be looking at this. I know you and I had a conversation about the fiscal note, which is substantially larger in prior iterations. We rewrote this to where they would look at this at their annual conference to determine the cost of it in our state.
Right. Okay. Any follow-up? All right. Next up is Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move previous question.
Previous question has been called. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. We are voting on House Bill 2774 as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. You move out to Finance, Ways and Means. Number 7. Next up, we have HJR 830 by Leader Cochran. We have a motion and a second, so sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HJR 830, it recognizes the Tennessee rifle as the historic rifle of the state of Tennessee. That is a basic rifle that was came on the scene around 1850 or so, used by the settlers of our state, and has a historic significance to the history of our state. I'll yield any questions.
All right, we do have questions. Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, a week ago, we were here commemorating the shooting that happened in our state, the largest mass shooting in our state at Covenant School. Gun violence is the number one killer of children in the state of Tennessee. And this resolution is to, in essence, honor a firearm and to encourage this General Assembly to do so. At a time such as this, I think that this is misplaced. And as much as you might like the rifle or all of the points that you articulated there, the reality of the situation we are in right now as it relates to firearms and suicides that are happening in our communities and gun violence that we're experiencing every day, I think proves the reasons why now is probably the inappropriate time to have this type of resolution before this body. And so I won't be supporting this. I think there's a point and there's a good time to acknowledge history. And when it comes to honoring a rifle, a firearm in our state, I do not think, colleagues, that time is now. The truth of the matter is we've got a lot of issues as it relates to firearm safety, firearm deaths that are occurring, and to use our voices to collectively honor the Tennessee rifle, which you mentioned was used by settlers of this state. I didn't see any mention of the indigenous people who were on the other end of those rifles. I didn't see any mention of sort of the collective history that would have to be a part of this. If you mentioned 1850, it's 13 years for the Emancipation Proclamation, 10 years before the Civil War. There's a lot of context, I think, that you would want to include. But the reality is, just right now, this isn't something that we should be doing. And so for that reason, I can't support this resolution. And colleagues, I would ask that you not support this resolution. There may be a time when firearm deaths aren't the number one killer of children in our state, that something like this might be more appropriate. But that time is not today, and that time is not now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the reality of the situation is, just because a gun has been used by an evil person to commit evil acts at different points in our history doesn't mean that all guns are evil and that all guns have been used for evil purposes. And I feel like that's the implication there, and that's not true. It's a musket. It's a muzzle loader. That again, that helped with the expansion, with the establishment of our state. And you mentioned the Emancipation Proclamation. That this is a rifle that is very specific to East Tennessee, a region of our state that was notably loyal to the Union and fought against slavery and fought to keep our Union together. And again, those soldiers in East Tennessee were volunteers. They weren't conscripted by the Union Army. That they lived in a Confederate state at the time, and they volunteered, and they took many of their rifles and supplies with them to fight against that horrible scourge on our country. And many of those rifles were probably Tennessee rifles because they brought their own supplies. So agreed. If we're going to talk about history, let's talk about all of it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Pearson, we've got a pretty extensive list.
Okay.
We're going to come back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next on our list is Representative Alexander.
Chairman, thank you for bringing this bill to us. And I do think that it is important to recognize historical artifacts that we have across this state. I come from East Tennessee, where that rifle was very important. So I thank you. There is no use of this rifle anymore unless somebody around here is making gunpowder. We don't use it. But it's something that we need to recognize that it did protect the freedoms of this country. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any
No
comment? All right. Next on our list is Representative Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor, for bringing this to us. We're looking through the bill here. I can't find the caliber of this gun. Do you happen to have that information?
Thank you.
Later, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. It's a low caliber weapon and known for its accuracy. Very little kickback, and so it was a notably low caliber but extremely accurate from a long range, which is what made it so effective. And it was usually called the hog rifle. And so some folks still use it for that reason if they decide to do it in muzzle loading season. But it is a lower caliber weapon that is, again, known for its accuracy at long distances.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And just one other thing too, that from being from East Tennessee, I really appreciate this and the history of it. Too, going back, we had people talking about gun violence, regarding this, but it's odd that they talk about gun violence. I have 7 guns and none of them have ever been violent. We never talk about knife violence. We had 4 people in Colorado, that were stabbed to death, and nobody talks about knife violence. Nobody talks about taking knives off the street and putting them back on the kitchen table where they belong. So I don't know what this has to do with that. And I appreciate you bringing this forward. And it's time that we celebrate the history of our state and our country. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next on our list is Chairman Holtzclaw.
Thank you, Chairman, and I do appreciate you bringing this bill. I can see you out there in your muck boots, but typically this was like a 32 caliber.
Thank you.
And it was used to kill hogs and that kind of stuff. And as Representative Powers said, guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Thank you.
Nope. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next on our list is Representative Dixie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, I do agree with you. Guns aren't evil. Guns aren't good. Guns have no feelings. So guns are an instrument of death. And I feel like this bill is a great example of the hypocrisy that we have in this state when it comes to guns. We're celebrating a gun. It's a part of history. It belongs in a museum. Put it in a museum. Why do we have to continue to codify this and put this and make it the state gun? I feel like at this time in history, it's insensitive. What we should be doing, we have a slate of bills that were just killed horribly yesterday that will help prevent the spread of guns throughout this state.
Representative Dixie, we need to stick to the bill, please. I realize.
Okay,
but we're kinda
okay,
getting off track.
I'll
We're getting
rein
off
it back
track.
in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll rein it back in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Representative.
I will rein it back in. Pearson.
Let's, and I realize he did get off there, but we're trying to get it kind of reined back in a little bit. There wasn't anything about persons, okay?
All right. Let's,
Okay. Representative Dixie.
again, I just think that at this time in history, it's very hypocritical for us to have this bill honoring a gun and what's going on, and especially in Tennessee, and the spread of the how far and easily it is to get guns. So I wish we would rethink about just the optics of how this looks. But I understand this is a part of history, and I believe that it belongs in a museum. But I just do not believe we should make it the state gun. I don't think, or any gun for that matter.
All right. Any follow-up, leader?
I think I would just add briefly, the only thing that has ever stopped evil men with guns are good people with guns. And that's been kind of the case throughout world history, not just the United States history. There have been atrocities throughout the world in different nations. And the only way to have stopped that in the modern era is for good people to have those. This was one of those back in the 1800s, as an example that I presented earlier, where many volunteers brought their own weapons and brought their own guns to battle to end an atrocity. Again, evil people use guns, but it's up to good people to stand up. A gun is a tool, and it depends who wields that tool, how it is used. And so this was one, again, that allowed for the establishment of our state. It was used. This type of weapon was used at Kings Mountain in the Revolutionary War. Again, you had good people who had. Unfortunately, there are times in our history where good people have to stand, and they have to use weapons to do that. That's not ideal. I mean, I wish that wasn't the case, but it happens, and it happens again and again in world history. But evil will prevail if good people don't have a way to defend themselves. I can promise you that. And so that when we talk about celebrating history, that's the part of history. That is one part of history that we are celebrating, that there are times when good people have chosen to wield this weapon to end atrocities. And so again, that's a part of the history that we're celebrating here.
All right. Representative Pearson, we're back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Sponsor, I'm just going to reiterate, I do not think that we need to be celebrating firearms in our state until such a point that we do not have an epidemic of gun violence. That is the #1 killer of children in our state. That's one thing. The other thing is I hear these talking points, right? Good people with guns and all those things. For the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, and other indigenous communities who were being shot by those very guns, do you think they think the settlers of this state were good people? Do you think they were saying, "Oh, these are the good folks. Thank you, God, that the good people have the firearm"? What are you objecting to? This is a comment that.
This is this bill is regarding whether or not we're going to recognize the Tennessee rifle or not. And I know that everybody has their feelings about certain things and all, and I think they've been adequately expressed. So if you have a comment about the rifle, not about who was killed with it, there was a lot of folks fed their family with that gun too. It wasn't just a tool for killing people. So if you would, please, sir.
Okay, and I can appreciate that comment, Mr. Chairman. I will say this. I do not think we need to be recognizing the Tennessee rifle. And while, to your point, Mr. Chairman, it had several uses, right?
Yes, it did.
I believe that firearms that are used for the colonization of a location, right, as was mentioned, was one of the reasons that the Tennessee rifle is being celebrated, right? That we cannot separate that from the history of the indigenous communities in our state and the suffering that they experienced. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. And so for those reasons, I cannot support this, not just for one, but it's for the reality that we have an epidemic that we need to be dealing with. And it's for the reality of the history that this firearm has, not just for feeding family, but for
We're going to move on.
hurting people. And so thank you. With that, Mr.
Moving on.
Chairman, I
Representative
yield my time.
Leatherwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and sponsor. And I am going to support your bill. First, let me say, I just appreciate how articulate you were and on point and the points you made in response to some of the comments. I appreciate that. It was very well done. Secondly, I do have to point out, I own a Hawkins 50 caliber muzzle loader, much more accurate at a much greater distance. But having said that, Tennessee is in the name of this rifle and so forth. So given the fact that it really isn't quite as accurate at quite a distance as some others, I'm still going to support your bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Question's been called. No objection. We're voting on HJR 830. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The ayes have it. And sir, you are moving out to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Thank you. Next item, number 8, is 2354 is off notice. And next up, we have item number 9, House Bill 2674 by Representative Shaw. And I believe we do have, already have a motion and a second on that. Okay. And Representative Shaw, I don't see an amendment, so sir, you're recognized.
This is a very simple bill. Let me just give you the simple solution, then I'll answer any questions if you have any. It simply just allows the Department of General Services and the chief, as the chief procurement officer, to have oversight over and discretion over the state's IT system. It's what the bill does. And I stand ready to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, sir. You've heard the explanation. Is there any questions for the sponsor? Question has been called on the bill. With that objection, we're voting on House Bill 2674. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. And Representative, you move out to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Next up is item number 10 by Representative Gillespie, House Bill 2618, and he's in criminal. Okay.
We'll just move it. So we'll move back to item number 1.
All right.
Representative Dixie signed on.
Okay. All right, we're going to move back up on the calendar to item number 1, which is HJR 674. And Representative Dixie, I understand you're going to make this presentation.
If you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
I do, but hey, I was thrust into this position. No, don't tell GA that. I'm doing this for GA. Thank you so much. I'll need a motion in a second. please.
All right, we got a motion and a second, sir. You're recognized.
Not running your meeting, but so this is a bill that if implemented, it would ask for the workplace harassment and prevention training designed to increase awareness and prevent workplace harassment for members of employees of the General Assembly. Basically, it just urges the legislative administration to establish and encourage members of the 113th General Assembly and legislative employees to participate in race relation and demonstrate age-based discrimination in the workplace training program. And that is what it does, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir. You've heard the explanation. Are there any questions for the sponsor?
Question.
Oh, okay, Representative Leatherwood.
Am I looking at this correctly? This will urge the legislative administration to look at doing this for members of the 113th General Assembly?
Yes.
The 113th General Assembly is about to end. So would we have to get this done by January of next year, or when's the 114th General Assembly come in?
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
You don't want to keep.
Yeah, it is.
Would you all like
And
to?
we might have
would
something
you all
to do
like to go out of
between now and
session
January.
and speak to legal on this?
I would definitely, well, hell, I'm on the, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm on this bill, but this is what he asked me to do, and I would love to make an amendment so that I think his intention is for us to have this training, and if
Mr.
we did have to
Chairman.
move it until 114th, I think that would probably be appropriate.
Pardon?
Okay.
Okay,
Come back to me.
all right, Representative Leatherwood. Comment.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we send this summer study.
We have a motion to summer study, and it has been seconded. All in favor of sending this bill to summer study, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Representative moves out to summer study. Okay, we are back now to item number 10, which is House Bill 2618 by Representative Gillespie. We have a motion. Do we have a second? And I believe you do have an amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
And it does
It's,
rewrite the bill.
yes, sir. It's,
Motion and second on the amendment. We'll go ahead and vote to put it on the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. You're back on your bill as amended, sir.
thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This is what I'm calling my DA Transparency Act. And all it's simply doing is it would allow for the speaker or lieutenant governor to request information from any DA, any donations made to any DA's office from any nonprofit dealing with the issues of cash bail. It goes specifically into, there's some parameters there. It's not an educational institution. And it's just the top 5% of the donors of the greater value that have donated in the previous year. And all we're looking for is for transparency, to know who's funding who. With that, I welcome any questions.
All right. First on our list, we have Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. And I see Chairman Miller also had a question. Look, have you talked with our DA about this legislation in Shelby County?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have.
And he was supportive of this? Or can you share whether he was supportive of this or not? Thank you, Chairman.
Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first version of this bill, he was not supportive of, but after it's been amended, actually multiple times, we've made some changes, and he is, I believe, just neutral. There's no, he has not told me he's actively against it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Representative Pearson.
Thank you. I want to be able to trust that. The nonprofits that you mentioned, I mean, in any other part of our code, is something similar to this, where nonprofits that are working with governmental agencies but are not in and of themselves governmental entities, having to, in any case, release the top 5% of their donors to the request of the speaker or anyone in this body?
Right. Representative Gillespie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not familiar with that. You would need to ask legal for that information.
Right, Representative Pearson.
Thank you. The last question here. The nonprofits that are doing cash bail, is the DA on the board of these nonprofits? Is the DA, like, are there MOUs with these nonprofits? Like, how is it that a DA would be able, I mean, we would be able to force a DA to release information of an entity from which they are not responsible in a fiduciary sense or in an administrative sense?
Representative Gillespie, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And that's actually a very good question because I completely left that part out. Yes, they would have to have entered into a MOU with that nonprofit. So this is existing or future organizations that enter into an MOU with a DA's office regarding cash bail policies.
All right. And just the last question, Chairman. Are there any right now that have an MOU with the DA?
Representative, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yes, there are. And I know there are other organizations out there that are looking to do that as well. Again, all this is doing is just how you and I have to disclose where we get our donations from. If a DA's office is receiving funding from an organization that is trying to influence policy on that office, I believe the citizens have a right to know what that information is and who is doing it.
All right.
I think maybe a legal question.
All right. All right. Without objection, we'll go out of session and consult legal here.
Thank you. Legal, as I'm understanding this, or as you understand the legislation, are there currently entities that are giving money to, or private nonprofits that are giving money to district attorneys? And this is seeking to, as the sponsor mentioned, just like allow for this body to be able to get access to those top 5% of donors?
Thank you, Matt Money. For the record, is the question, is that activity currently
happening? Yes.
Going on? I don't know whether or not there are nonprofits that are currently entering into MOUs and contracts with district attorneys in the state, but if they do, for the purposes of dealing with cash bail, then they would be potentially subject to these disclosure requirements.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Last comment, then I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Right,
Chairman.
Any other questions for legal while we're out of session?
I'm sorry.
All right, we're back in session and
Question on the bill.
question has been called.
Thank you. I think it reverts back to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then thank you.
Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Chairman
Thank you.
and Chairman Powers. And I believe Chairman Miller had a comment, if it's okay with Representative Chairman Powers. I understand I think what the intent is that you were having, Representative Gillespie, but I do not think that adding these requirements specifically to something related to cash bail, where we don't even know if MOUs currently exist, is going to address any of the issues or the root causes that I know many people are trying to. This is not going to fix any of the injustices that we know we need to be addressing as it relates to cash bail in Shelby County or in our state. And so for that reason, I don't think I'll be able to support this legislation. I'm all for transparency. I think that's really important in government, but I don't think this is going to meet the aim that you would seek to have, or that I now understand better from Council Monday. And so thank you, Mr. Chairman and Chairman Powers. I know you previously called question and Chairman Miller was on the line. Just didn't know if you wanted to do that.
All right. All right, we have one more on the list, and that is Representative Bricken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, a very interesting bill, but it raised kind of a question to me. It seems like I've never thought about where all the different sources of bail could come from, but couldn't a nonprofit just post bail without going through the DA? I mean, it seems like, I mean, this is fine if it captures something, but I mean, I'm not sure, does it capture everything? So.
All right, Representative Gillespie, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And yes, you are correct. This does not address that to the extent a nonprofit would be able to directly donate, or excuse me, put up a cash bail or surety. However, there are already existing rules in place and laws. There are fees that you have to place, or there are fees that you have to pay on every time you place a bail or place money up for a bail. And there are certain nonprofits that are doing that now that are not paying that. So that is a completely different issue. I do have another piece of legislation that does deal with that. That's already gone through the, I don't believe this committee, but this is just one part of the puzzle that we have. And what we're trying to do here is simply give us, members of the General Assembly or the general public, a better insight as to who is working and trying to influence policies that should be implemented by elected officials and not a nonprofit. And that's all that we're trying to do here.
Right. Next up, we have Representative Dixie.
I just kind of wanted to declare like Rule 13. I do have a bail bonding company, so I wanted to abstain from this vote. But the one thing I think that this bill does, that we should just expand it more to include us, because we get some money from organizations and we don't know where this money comes from. So I think it's only important that people should know who's influencing us with their pockets. If we're going to do it, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. So hopefully maybe next year you will work with bringing a bill to do that so that we can address the dark money and the politics.
All right, we're back to Chairman Powers.
Question on the bill.
Question has been called. All in favor of House Bill 2618? Please, pardon?
We always say bless you.
Oh, okay. All right, House Bill 2618. Please say aye. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. And sir, you move out to calendar and rules. And members, thank you all. And this does conclude our calendar. And we will stand. Pardon? You want to be recognized? All right, Representative, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry that Chairman Kiesling isn't here so we could say our goodbyes to him. And I want to thank Representative Johnson for being here, and thank you. I know you won't be here next year. And I really appreciate you and being a level head in some of the committees that we've had. So I really appreciate you. The one thing that I would urge my members as we move forward, and hopefully, knock on wood, because this is the wood, that we'll all be back next year who are running for re-election. And as we move forward through next year, that we'll reconsider about calling the question so quickly so we can have a truly debate about what we're doing here, and we can have people defend their bills and hopefully keep down some of the adversarial environment that we have here. And hopefully we can go home and take a break and come back refreshed and renewed and ready to work for each other, and we have a more collaborative effort. But thank you again for your service, Rep.
All right. All right.
Rick. Chairman.
All right. Chair Lady Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for your service this year. You've been a great vice chair and done a real good job. But I also want to say that we're going to miss Chairman Holtzclaw too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
thank you, Mr.
I want to say myself that I've served as the vice chair of state since I've been here, and I've had a fantastic mentor in Chairman Kiesling, and a lot of you all have been great examples. And I've enjoyed this committee tremendously. I've got good people on here, and that makes it your job a whole lot easier. So with that, we're going to stand adjourned, subject to the call of the chair.
Committee is closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. The committee is closed, subject to the call of the chair.